Today's submitted material is a passionate, informal commentary transcript dissecting a wealthy influencer's insensitive and out-of-touch reaction to a laid-off airline worker's GoFundMe. And, we are jumping right into the feedback today because while this piece has phenomenal raw energy, it desperately needs structural sharpening to maximize its impact on an audience.
Yeah, it really does. The passion is definitely there, but modulating the emotional escalation throughout the script will prevent viewer fatigue and give the core argument more room to breathe.
Right.
Because right now, when we look at the timeline of this transcript, the most glaring weakness is that the piece peaks at maximum outrage extremely early.
Like, way too early.
Zach, around the 40-second mark, the creator explicitly states they are already furious. They use this really intense language about wanting to physically punch their screen.
Yeah, it's a lot for the first minute.
Right, and by hitting the absolute ceiling of frustration before the video has even really established its premise, well, the rest of the commentary is left with nowhere to go emotionally.
It's like outrage in a commentary video is basically like a spice in a complex recipe,
Oh, I like that.
Like, if you dump a massive handful of cayenne pepper into the pot in the first 40 seconds, the viewer's palate is totally blown out. You just can't taste any of the nuanced arguments later on because the audience's ears are already ringing from the early screaming.
Down into something that feels like, just a repetitive rant. I mean, if you start the volume at a 10 just becomes the new baseline.
And the audience experiences complete sensory adaptation. They stop processing the actual words and just hear noise.
Exactly. So the suggestion here is calibrating the emotional delivery to build sequentially.
Makes sense.
The emotional arc of the commentary should mirror the escalation of the influencer's absurdity. You want the listener to go on a journey with the creator, discovering the layers of hypocrisy one by one.
So what does that look like practically? Like, how do they actually map that out?
Well, for concrete examples, the video could open with a tone of bemused disbelief when reading that initial GoFundMe rejection from the influencer. It's so absurd that treating it with mild, almost clinical shock is far more effective than immediate anger.
Oh, absolutely. And then from there, the script could transition into a more grounded, analytical frustration when discussing the broader wealth gap or, the harsh realities of living paycheck to paycheck.
Right. You lay out the facts.
Yeah, you give them the economic data, the sheer volume of layoffs at the airline. You let the gravity of the situation really settle in. And then you intentionally save the visceral, table-pounding outrage for the absolute most hypocritical moment in the timeline.
Which is the follow-on to me.
Exactly. The revelation that this multimillionaire influencer demands desperate people follow him on social media to receive charity, that's when you bring the heat.
Yes, that is the exact moment for it.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure.
Because commentary audiences thrive on a raw, unfiltered, off-the-cuff vibe, right? Doesn't restraining the anger early on risk losing that authentic feel? Like, if a creator meticulously plans exactly when they are allowed to raise their voice, it risks sterilizing the whole video.
I see why you think that, yeah.
I mean, restraining the anger early on might make the creator feel like they are faking their own emotional response just to appease the structural formula.
It's a fair concern, but actually, structured emotion enhances the feeling of authenticity rather than detracting from it.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, think about it. When a creator screams at the very beginning of a video, it often reads to the audience as performative. It feels like they turned on the camera and forced themselves to be mad for the algorithm.
Oh, like they're just playing a character.
Exactly. And it is exhausting for a viewer who just clicked the thumbnail and hasn't even warmed up to the topic yet. But when you allow the audience to watch you actively reach your breaking point, when they sit beside you as the influencer's logic piles up until you genuinely can't take it anymore, that climax feels incredibly earned.
Earned. Yeah, I like that word.
It is the difference between a cheap jump scare in the first frame of a horror movie versus like a masterful 20-minute build of agonizing tension.
Earning the climax is the perfect way to frame it. And when you stretch out that emotional runway and delay the outrage, you suddenly have a lot of quiet, analytical space to fill in the first half of the video, which actually brings us to the actual substance of the argument.
It really does, because elevating the existing commentary on class and individualism from a passing thought to a central thesis will significantly deepen the impact of the critique.
Right, because right now, a highly insightful sociological angle gets completely buried beneath reactive ad hominem insults in the current draft.
Yeah, it's a shame. The creator hits on this profound original observation about the pandemic of individualism. They touch upon the stark reality of the current job market for those living paycheck to paycheck, specifically highlighting the 17,000 people who lost their jobs at the specific airline.
It is a brilliant systemic critique. It really is.
It is, but the weakness is that instead of letting that profound observation carry the narrative, the creator immediately undercuts their own intelligence by defaulting to calling the subject a brainless little weasel or, an idiot.
Right. And I mean, those superficial insults might feel really satisfying to write in the heat of the moment, sure, but they shrink the scope of the video.
They definitely do. So the suggestion here is to use those broader societal themes as the structural backbone of the entire script. It will completely transform the piece.
Okay, so how do they frame that?
Well, instead of framing the influencer merely as an annoying internet personality who made a bad post, the creator should frame him as the ultimate walking avatar of out-of-touch transactional wealth. You basically elevate the target from a single person to an entire societal sickness.
I love that. And honestly, the transcript actually has the perfect tool for this already built in. Let's look really closely at the section discussing the Dublin homeless analogy.
Oh, that part is so good.
It's incredible. The creator talks about giving cash to a homeless person on the street without demanding to know who they are, without running a background check, and certainly without demanding they follow them on social media.
It is a stunning, deeply human analogy. It perfectly illustrates the concept of unconditional empathy.
It really does. So explicitly contrasting the influencer's transactional view of humanity with that Dublin analogy should be the core mechanism of the script.
Exactly. For concrete examples of how to do this, instead of relying heavily on standard insults, take the influencer's repeated catchphrase, which is, welcome to the real world, and use it as an ironic thesis statement that anchors the whole video.
Oh, that's clever.
Right? You tie his use of that phrase directly to his complete lack of real-world experience. Every single time the influencer says, welcome to the real world, in the source clips, the creator should dismantle it with a factual reality of the current job market.
Yes, like if the creator uses a clip of the influencer telling the airline worker, welcome to the real world, the script should immediately counter with something like, the real world is a Bureau of Labor Statistics report showing a 40% drop in industry hiring while you sit in a gaming chair generating ad revenue from controversy.
That is so sharp. You use his own hollow rhetoric as the setup, and you use macroeconomic reality as the punchline.
But I have to ask, the creator's audience is likely here for internet drama and tea, right?
Yeah, that's definitely the demographic.
So does leaning too hard into terms like the pandemic of individualism risk making this feel too much like a rigid sociology lecture? I mean, viewers might look at the timeline, realize they are getting a TED Talk instead of a takedown, and click off to find a more entertaining creator.
That's a valid worry. But elevating the theme absolutely does not mean abandoning the entertainment value. It just means creating elevated snark.
Right, you don't have to put on a tweed jacket and grab a chalkboard to discuss class disparity.
Exactly. You weave this theme naturally through humor, sharp comparisons, and pacing. When you highlight the sheer absurdity of a millionaire thinking he works harder than a laid-off airline worker who logs 60-hour weeks, the contrast does all the comedic heavy lifting.
It really does.
It isn't a lecture. It is a surgical dismantling of an inflated ego using reality as the primary weapon. And anchoring the video in that systemic economic critique creates a highly specific narrative contract with the viewer. The audience expects a focused dismantling of class privilege.
Which leads us perfectly into our final point today. Because to maintain focus on this incredibly strong moral philosophy, the script must prune the elements that actively undermine it.
Absolute. Pruning tangential controversies and superficial insults will preserve the moral high ground and keep the narrative focus razor sharp, because the weakness here is really obvious in the final third of the draft.
Yeah. The script abruptly veers into a completely separate TikTok rant, right?
It does. The influencer discusses the word fatty, complains about liberal political labels, and then the creator takes physical jabs at the influencer's appearance.
Specifically mentioning a bodged BBL, if I remember correctly.
Yes. And this tangent fundamentally derails the powerful, class-based critique established in the first two acts. It dilutes the focus and severely compromises the creator's moral high ground.
I mean, you cannot be a brilliant sociologist critiquing the transactional nature of wealth in minute 3, and then pivot to being a high school bully making fun of someone's body in minute 4.
No, you really can't. It just doesn't work. When a video pivots to a completely unrelated TikTok rant about the word fatty, the viewer's brain realizes the core promise of the thumbnail, the airline workers' GoFundMe, is functionally over.
The narrative contract is basically broken at that point.
Exactly. Viewers will hover over the timeline, see that the main topic has been abandoned for a laundry list of unrelated grievances, and they will click away. That tanks the video's average view duration and signals to the algorithm that the video has lost its momentum.
So the suggestion here is that the script must either entirely remove the secondary controversy to maintain a tight, single-issue focus, or explicitly bridge it to the core thesis of performative cruelty.
Right. If an element does not serve the central thesis of the pandemic of individualism, it simply does not belong in the final cut. It has to go.
So let's give some concrete examples of how to actually fix this. One approach is to cut the fatty and BBL segment complete. Just lift it entirely out of the timeline.
Yes, and take the 2 or 3 minutes saved by that cut and weave in the Ethan Klein billboard context. Because currently, that is just tacked onto the very end of the script as an afterthought.
Right. Weave that billboard controversy in as proof of a pattern of untouchable arrogance. It actively supports the thesis that this influencer believes wealth shields him from basic human decency.
Or alternatively, if the creator absolutely feels that the fatty segment must stay, maybe because it highlights a recent escalating pattern of behavior, then they must aggressively cut the physical insults about the influencer's body.
Yeah, frame that specific TikTok clip purely as another symptom of the influencer's desperate need to punch down at marginalized or vulnerable people without consequence.
Exactly. Link it directly back to how he treated the laid-off airline work. The focus must remain exclusively on the abuse of power and platform, completely avoiding the race to the bottom of physical mockery.
But again, let me push back a little on this.
Go for it.
If we cut the tangents and the superficial jabs about his appearance, do we risk ignoring the elephant in the room? Like ignoring the broader gossip elements that viewers expect to hear when this specific influencer is brought up?
That is definitely a risk in the creator economy, sure. The comment section will undoubtedly accuse the creator of missing the biggest piece of the puzzle or failing to do their research.
Right, because viewers expect a comprehensive catalog of a controversial figure's recent misdeeds. Failing to provide that gossip dump might make the video feel incomplete to a drama-hungry audience.
But that is exactly the crucial editorial choice every high-level commentator has to make. A scattered gossip dump where a creator just lists 10 unrelated things they hate about someone is junk food.
It is quickly consumed, quickly forgotten.
And easily replicated by 100 other channels.
Precisely. But a focused takedown that strips away a public figure's perceived moral authority using one devastating central theme, that leaves a lasting mark. Yeah, by cutting the physical jabs and refusing to play in the mud, the creator's critique from the high ground becomes undeniable. It forces the audience to focus on the terrifying implications of the influencer's worldview rather than just laughing at his appearance.
Exactly. Looking at the entire architecture of this critique, the path to a highly retentive, culturally impactful video essay requires 3 fundamental shifts.
Let's recap them.
First, the creator must modulate the emotional escalation. Keep the powder dry early on to ensure the audience's palate isn't overwhelmed, allowing the ultimate climax to feel genuinely earned.
Second, they must elevate the core theme of individualism versus transactional wealth. So replacing the raw insults with the devastating contrast between that Dublin homeless analogy and the influencer's complete lack of real-world perspective.
And finally, they must prune the unrelated tangents. The final third of the script needs to be aggressively trimmed, specifically targeting the fatty TikTok rant and the physical insults, ensuring the video delivers exclusively on the promise of its central thesis.
Without compromising its intellectual authority.
Exactly right.
Well, the raw material here is phenomenally engaging, and the instinct to tie a single internet controversy to a broader societal sickness is the hallmark of top-tier commentary. The writer clearly possesses a sharp analytical eye.
They really do. There is so much potential here.
We warmly invite the listener to implement these structural adjustments and submit the revised draft or any future projects back to the show for further critique. We always look forward to seeing how these scripts evolve from passionate outlines into razor-sharp final products.